Hey y'all, cooking, cutting up, keeping it real. In my kitchen today, I'm going to be making lasagna. The lasagna recipe is in Granny's Farm to Tables cookbook. It came from my cousin Robin and her mom, Margaret, and then they passed it along to my mom, and then they all passed it along to me. So I'm going to go ahead and do the first step, which is going to be either 2 small onions or I'm gonna do 1 large onion because I'm actually doubling the recipe. So when you watch this, if you're just making 1, do half the amount of what I'm doing. We're getting ready to be grandparents for the first time, and I wanted to put some lasagna in the freezer so that when Drew and Jesse get home from the hospital and have the baby and don't want to cook or don't have time to cook, they can have lasagna in their freezer. This is a great recipe to make ahead and freeze it. Now you can do that one of 2 ways. You can make the sauce one day and freeze that for, a couple months or whatever, and then have your lasagna sauce already done. Or you can do like I'm doing, which is I'm gonna make the sauce, go ahead and assemble the lasagnas and stick them in the freezer. So either 2 small, for 1 recipe, you need 2 small onions or 1 large onion. For 2 recipes, I'm gonna do this big Whopper onion here and get that started. My family does not like onion chunks, so I usually puree my onions for any recipes that I do with onions in it. They like the onion flavor, they just don't like a chunk of onion. So I'm gonna use this little, I've had this forever and I love it. It's a little mincer, I don't know, slicer, dicer. Anyway, that's what I'm gonna use. I'm gonna put just a dab, a tablespoon or 2 of olive oil in my pan. And I'm gonna turn that burner on medium because we're gonna brown this hamburger and the onions and put some garlic in there. That's the first step. I also love to make this lasagna sauce early in the morning because it has a chance to marry up. After it's cooked, I let it cool completely and then I start to assemble the lasagna. It might help if I have the blade in. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. Let's try that again. We love lasagna. It's a hearty meal, feeds a lot of people, and it's great to freeze. My mother's lasagna has been one of my kids' favorites for years. Anytime my mother wants to cook for the family, my kids always say, "Do your lasagna, Mimi." So this is a really good recipe and it's not too difficult. Not too difficult at all. And tried and true. It's been tested over the years. I think I can get those 2 on this batch. Okay, olive oil and onion. Ooh. And I'm going to use 2 cloves of garlic because again, I'm doubling the recipe. And I have a little garlic holder that's Seagrove Pottery. I've had it for years. I want to say my mother-in-law gave that to me, but I can't remember. I've had it that long, but I love it. Keep my garlic in it. Let me get these little bits of onion in the pot. And I'm gonna go ahead and mince this. I should have just put it in that slicer dicer thing, but I got ahead of myself. Shocker. Happens when you're cooking. We are so incredibly excited. We pray for a healthy baby, healthy mommy and daddy. Due date is July the 30th. So I wanted to have a couple things in the freezer that if they need it, Granny can run it over there. What's y'all's favorite lasagna recipe? I'd love to know. I'd love for you to share it with us, how you do your lasagna. If you make lasagna homemade. Listen, I bought it in the grocery store for years too, when I don't have the time to make it homemade, but I do love making it homemade. No lie. Can't tell a lie. I love to make it homemade. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna get that garlic in. I'm not going to stir that to the bottom yet. Okay, I'm going to add 2 pounds of ground beef. And if you're not a beef person, you can definitely use turkey in this, ground turkey. I assume you could use ground chicken if you're a chicken person and not a beef person. We are definitely beef people around here. Talked to my cousin Robin last night, and I told her I always think about her when I do this recipe, her and her mama, and of course my mama. Now I'm going to break this up and give it a stir and let the hamburger completely brown. Oh, come on. Get in there. There we go. Okay, so stay tuned for step 2. I'm going to stir that up. Chop it up, get the hamburger separated, let it brown completely, and then we'll go on to step 2. Stay tuned. Back with step 2 of lasagna. While your hamburger, onions, and garlic, and a little bit of olive oil are browning, I went out and got some fresh basil. The recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of basil, and you can use fresh or you can use dried. I love basil, so I'm okay with having extra in mine, but I'm going to chop this basil while that's browning. I brought it in and washed it. Get a rough chop in here, get it smaller. I don't want any real big leaves in this recipe. And again, I'm doubling the recipe, so it would actually be 4 teaspoons for a double recipe. 2 teaspoons for 1. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm gonna put that into the pot. It's gonna be smelling good up in here. Up in here, up in here. Okay, I did the same thing with oregano. Original recipe calls for half teaspoon of oregano. And since I have fresh, I've got me some cuttings and I'm gonna use fresh. So I'm gonna skin it. I've washed it. Love the smell of fresh herbs in my kitchen. Cannot explain it. If you ever go to using fresh herbs, you'll understand that. I mean, don't get me wrong, it smells good when it's dry, but boy, when it's fresh, If I have a few sprigs extra, I'll throw them in a flower arrangement or something. We've gotten some good old soaking rain on the farm, so everything's going to just take off now once the sun comes back out. Okay, last little sprig here. And you know, oregano's already really small leaves, so you don't have to chop it quite as much as the basil. We're supposed to have rain showers on and off all day today, so it's a great day to cook in the kitchen, in my opinion. Okay, that goes in. All right, let me set that to the side so I can clean it. And what I want to do is bring the camera over closer to the pot so you can see the next step. Next steps, plural. Okay. Get my cans over here. And my recipe. And I'm going to add to this some salt and pepper, 2 teaspoons of salt, a little bit of black pepper. That's to your taste. You know, you can always add that more later. Okay, I'm about out of salt. Let's try this. There it is. Let's just go right in the, I think this is a new one of salt, yeah. So 2 teaspoons. Again, you can add more of that later. So I don't want to over salt this. I'm going to add a little bit of pepper as well, black pepper. About a tablespoon. And then I'm going to give it a stir. Hamburger's brown. Smells wonderful. Okay, now we're going to add 2 cans of tomato sauce. This is a 15-ounce can. Remember, this is a double recipe, so 1 can for 1 recipe. And then I'm going to use the diced tomatoes, onion, and roasted garlic, 15-ounce can as well. And again, I'll be doubling that. Let me get these open. I have wiped off the lids and they are ready to roll. We'll turn this down to low while I'm thinking about it. My mama used to always make this for us on Christmas Eve. We had lasagna since we've been adults. That's what she's made. Grandkids love it. The adults love it. It's just a good, hearty recipe. Tried and true. Okay. All right, in goes the tomatoes. And I use the diced ones because my family, my nuclear family, my husband and children, do not like big chunks of tomato. So the smaller for us, the better when I'm doing recipes that call for tomatoes. They love ketchup, but not tomatoes. I know it's a little weird being on a farm and not liking tomatoes, but they don't. I love them about any way you want to fix them. Okay, to this we're going to add 2 teaspoons of sugar per recipe. So we're going to add 4 teaspoons of sugar. And I'm going to eyeball mine. Oh, I made a mess. Oh well. Okay. Let's stir this in. Okay, double check the recipe. We have 2 small onions, 1 tablespoon. This is for single recipe. 2 small onions, 1 tablespoon of olive oil, 1 pound of ground beef, and a clove of garlic. Brown that. Then you're going to add 2 teaspoons of sugar, 1 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of whole basil chopped, half teaspoon of oregano leaves or oregano powder, pepper to taste, and then you're going to go in with 1 12-ounce can of tomato sauce, 1 12-ounce can of tomatoes. I had 15 ounces, but that won't matter. And then your sauce needs to simmer for about an hour. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to keep it on low, and I'm simply going to cover it. Where's my lid? And I'll be back with y'all to show you how to assemble it. Lasagna, y'all, on this nice rainy day. Lasagna sauce is finished, and I'm gonna start putting one together. I'm using 2 separate smaller pans rather than a 13 by 9 because I doubled the recipe, and I'm gonna put these in the freezer. So I'm gonna start assembling by putting just a little bit of the sauce on the bottom. This is a wonderful, wonderful recipe. And honestly, it's so nice to be able to make it ahead of time. Like when you have time and want to cook, and then have that baby in the freezer and you pop it out and pop it in the oven. That's the beauty of a recipe like this one. Okay, to that, I'm gonna add some cottage cheese. You can choose to use ricotta if you're not a cottage cheese person. That's totally up to you. And listen, when I assemble these, they're a little bit different every time I assemble them, honestly. I am gonna get these together, pop them in the freezer, make a big one for us to have in the freezer. But these I can take to Drew and Jesse when the baby comes, or have it in there for a meal or whatever. So I'm gonna put 1 row of noodles. And I don't cook mine ahead of time. I used to, but my cousin told me, she said, you're doing an extra step. Don't cook the noodles. I was like, okay. I love when somebody gives me a handy tip like that to save me some time and effort. Okay. On top of that, I'm going to put another thing of sauce, and then I'm going to go up with some cheese. It smells wonderful. I want those noodles to be in between the gooiness and the sauce. Okay, I'm gonna put a little bit of Parmesan and a little bit of mozzarella on each. Just a layer, because honestly, I want to do one more layer of noodles and finish it off with sauce and then some cheese. That's how I want to do mine. Oh, I'm losing noodles. Losing my noodles. Okay, let's do a little more sauce here. Spread that out. And then it looks like I'm gonna have enough sauce in 2 recipes to do one more this size. That's what that looks like to me. I thought I might get a 13 by 9 and 2 of these, but that's not enough sauce. So I'm gonna do one more this size. Okay, cheeses. A little bit of cottage. Cottage has great protein, cottage cheese does. Spread it out. So that doubling of the recipe of the sauce is going to give us 3 this size. So no, 8 by 13 and 1 this size, or 2 of these and then 1 more of it. 3 of these total. Okay. I know, look, I confuse myself sometimes. Okay, Parmesan. And mozzarella. And I'm going to grab 1 more mozzarella. And again, this recipe is in Amy's Farm to Table. I just stepped on the noodle. I'll have to get my little broom and dustpan out. I want to put quite a bit of cheese on the top so that when it bakes, that's what you see, is that brown, ooey gooey cheese. And that will, if you're going to bake them immediately, instead of freezing them, it's going to go into a, let's see, 350-degree oven for 30 minutes. and then let it stand for 30 minutes when you remove them from the oven. Anyway, lasagna, y'all. That's what I'm doing in my kitchen today. Give it a try. Your family will love it. Like, share, and comment. We'll see y'all soon. Take care.